In the last video, we did F1, F2, and F3, and today we're going to be doing F4 and F5. I can find powers of numbers. So in this question here, we've got 4 squared is 4 times 4. The power here, which is the number 2, tells us that we're multiplying the number 4 by itself twice. Pause the video here so you can take a note of this and refer to it whenever doing questions of this type. 4 questions for you to try. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So for the first one, we'll multiply 8 twice. Second one, 6 3 times. 9 4 times. And finally, 4, we multiply 8 times by itself. Here's a discussion point for you to do. Now, you must write down what the correct answer is, and you must justify whether you agree or not. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. So, Tiana is incorrect, and the reason why is 8 cubed can be written out as 8 times 8 times 8. This then would be equal to 512. 8 cubed does not mean 8 times 3. Let's try this question together. So we've got 2 cubed. We should know how to write it out. 2 times 2 times 2. Let's see how we get 8. So first we need to do 2 times 2, which is 4, and then multiply by 2, which gives us the 8. For the second question, we need to multiply it by itself 5 times. Once we do that, we work for it one by one. So we do 10 times 10 first, then multiply by 10, then multiply by 10, and then finally multiply by 10 again, and you should get 100,000. Here's 2 questions for you to try. Pause the video here. Here's solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So for the first one, you should have done 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. For the next one, you should multiply 6 by itself 4 times, and you should get 1,296. And that's the end of F4, and we are now ready to move on to F5. Here's our beat the clock for today. So you've got to describe what 4 to the power 6 means. Then you've got 2 simple questions, followed by 2 medium difficult questions. And finally, you've got 2 power questions at the end. Now for these questions, because of the last 2 questions in particular, spend a maximum of 12 minutes. And remember to use the help of a timer. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So for the first one, 4 to the power 6 means we multiply 4 by itself 6 times. For the second one, we need to make sure we multiply, then add, then brackets and divide. For these questions, remember to work for it slowly. Multiply first, then we work from left to right as we're subtracting and adding, and they're on the same level. For this question, we do brackets first, then we need to multiply, and then finally add. For the last question, remember 25 squared means 25 times 25, doesn't mean 25 times 2. And finally, 14 cubed means 14 times 14 times 14. I can find the root of numbers. So we've got key information here, and we are now dealing with roots. This is what a root looks like. We can see inside the root we have the number 9, and outside the root we have the number 2. The result is equal to 3 because 3 times 3 is equal to 9. The number inside the root, which is the 2 over here, tells us how many times we must multiply the number by to get the result. Remember, it has to be the same 2 numbers. So here we have 3 times 3 because we want 2 same numbers, which we can see from the 2 outside the root. To get the result inside the root, the result is 9. We can see that 3 times 3 is the only answer that we can possibly get. Here's a you-do question for you to try. Make sure that you complete both sides. Pause the video here. Here's solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So we could have used a trick here. For example, to find the cube of 1, we could have used our result from the square of 1 and multiplied it by 1 once again. This technique can be used all the way throughout these questions. Here's a you-do question for you to try. You do need to fill the gaps with the same number. You can use the slide before that we've done here to guide you further. For the first one, you want to look for 2 same numbers that give you 25. And for the second one, you want 3 numbers that give you 64. As an extension, I want you to think about how you could describe these using the phrases square or cube root. Here's the solutions. For the first one, you should have got 5 times 5 to give you 25. And for the second one, 4 times 4 times 4 gives you 64. Here's a you do question for you to try. Make sure that you fill in the gaps for inside the root and outside the root for both of these questions here. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So for the first question, we want to find the square root of 25. That means two numbers multiplied together that gives us 25, which is equal to 5, as 5 times 5 gives us 25. For the second question, we want the cube root of 64. We want three same numbers that multiply to give us 64. That means we need to do 4 times 4 times 4. So the number is going to be 4. Try these couple of questions together. So we've got square root of 25. Now, in this case, we have got the 2 written there, but in some cases, you might not have a 2 written there. What does it mean if there's no 2 written there? Well, it just means the same thing. So if there is no 2, that still means square root of 25. So we do need to know that for some questions. This just means two numbers multiplied together. That gives me 25, and they have to be the same. So the only numbers that it could be is 5, as 5 times 5 is 25. For the next one, cube root of 1,000 just means three numbers that are the same multiplied to give me 1,000 as my result. That can only be 10, as 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. Here's 3 questions for you to try. Now, once you're done, you can also write on the side how we say this. And here's the solutions. For the first one, two numbers that multiply to give you 64 can be 8. For the second one, three numbers that multiply to give you 343 is 7. And finally, 4 numbers to give you 625 is 5. Now let's practice saying this properly. So for the first one, it should have been square root of 64 is 8. The second one, cube root of 343 is 7. And finally, the fourth root of 625 is 5. That's the end of F5, and in this video today we covered both F4 and F5. That's the end of the video.